Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you, we're honored and we're blessed to even get on his calendar, to have him here today to talk about servant leadership in a changing world. So without any more waste of time, my friend and yours, Joel Allison.
Good morning.
Good morning.
James, thank you so much for that very kind introduction. You're very generous with your introduction. Yeah, I have to admit, one of my great passions is bill fishing, and when I can have some time, and I would love more than anything before I go meet my Savior that I'd catch that 1,000-pound mark. Everybody talks about the grainger, and definitely on my bucket list. I want to do it. But it is indeed an honor, and I'm very humbled to be asked to come and speak to you today. I had the pleasure of getting to know Ken through our conversations and emails, and as James mentioned, I already knew him, so I really want to thank them for this opportunity. And I've learned a little bit more about this wonderful program, Executive Connection, and I compliment you. I really am just so thrilled to hear about this group of men and women that come together who are really committed to learning more and doing more around the topic of servant leadership. What a wonderful statement, and something that I truly believe we need more in this world today than ever. One, we need leadership, and two, we need servant leadership. And I like to believe that I am a servant leader. That's what I've tried to model my leadership style after for over almost 40 years now, and I really admire you, and I thank you for doing this. And I hope to learn more about this organization and all the good work that you do. It was great to hear from Leanne, having been in the Allison-Keynote way. What a great organization. They're doing great things, and volunteerism is still the great American way. I still believe that's what separates America from any other country in this world, is the fact that we still believe in volunteerism, and we have wonderful volunteers, and I know many of you are very much engaged, and we appreciate it. And my good friend Michael Hinojosa is here. He does a great job leading our independent school district. We all rely on Michael to produce those leaders. So, Michael, we're with you, my friend, and I know Michael and I are having a lot of fun down in Austin these days. I told him I was in the Speaker of the House's office the day before yesterday, and we were talking about Dallas and what was going on, and he said, well, you know, your superintendent was here just the day before in my office and wanted to know how our school system was going, and we talked about that, talked a little bit about health care and some of the challenges. So again, Michael, we've been canceling vacations because I think it's going to be a long summer from what I'm hearing. So with that, I want to go ahead, if I could, and I'd like to give you a brief overview of Baylor. Not everybody may be familiar with the Baylor healthcare system, but I'd like to take a few minutes and give a quick overview. I always like to begin with our founding statement that was made in 1903. Dr. George W. Truett, who was then pastor of First Baptist Church in Dallas, he was at a meeting one evening with several business leaders and physicians and some of the religious leaders in the community, and they were talking about health care. Dr. Truett, one of the great leaders, great religious leaders, great statesman, stood up and he said, "Is it not now time to build a great humanitarian hospital, one to which men of all creeds and those of none may come with equal confidence?" That has really been the guiding statement for the Baylor healthcare system since 1903. And I like to believe that that's still what we're doing today. Use that same statement. It's as relevant today as it was then. Is it not now time to build a great healthcare system, one to which men and women of all creeds and those of none may come with equal confidence? When you look at our mission statement, we were founded as a Christian ministry of healing back in 1903. Baylor healthcare system today exists to serve all people. It's about serving all people through exemplary health care, education, research, and community service. Those are our four foundational pillars: education, research, community service, serving all people, and then most of all, putting the patient at the center of all we do. It's about patient care. And then our vision statement, to carry us on for another 100 years, we hope, is to be trusted. This is, Dr. Truett said about confidence, to be trusted as the best place to give and receive safe, quality, compassionate health care. And I would underline compassionate, because one of the great things that I get to experience every day as I serve our people at Baylor, serve the wonderful physicians and clinicians and nurses and therapists, our staff, is that so many people come there with this sense of, I want to serve. Serving others. That's what we're in, the service business, to care for others. And one of our values is servanthood. Integrity, servanthood, innovation, quality, and stewardship guide the Baylor healthcare system. Now, it's a very busy map. Just want to let you see kind of where we're located today. We have over 263 access points to a Baylor facility of some type. It goes all the way from our 26 owned, operated, joint ventured, affiliated hospitals that we have across 10 counties of the Metroplex in North Texas. Maybe an ambulatory surgery center. We have 25 of those. Maybe some of our outpatient clinics that we have all throughout the area. And then we have physician clinics. We have over 500 physicians that are employed through Baylor. And we have over 156 locations. We have senior health centers to serve that population. We are in the retail business with pharmacies. We have a research institute, and we have 3 philanthropic foundations. The Baylor Healthcare System is a 501c3 not-for-profit. So you're getting double duty today. You say you always want to talk about not-for-profit. You heard about the Bill stuff. Going to hear from another not-for-profit today. Here's just a few statistics. I don't want to overwhelm you with that. It's just to give you a sense of scope. Over 3,500 licensed beds. We deliver Baylor babies. 21,500 Baylor babies that we do each year. Have over 127,000 admissions to our inpatient facilities. Emergency visits. Our emergency departments have become access points across the system. We'll do over 400,000 emergency room visits this year, and that's because people do not have access to a physician. And you have to come there because that is where they receive their care. We have outpatient services, again, 625,000 registrations. I mentioned our wonderful physician group, but we also have other physicians on our medical staff. We have 33,278 that we would consider active members of our medical staff, as well as our employed physicians. And we're the 3rd largest employer in the Metroplex behind Walmart and American Airlines. It's actually 20,000 employees now. And we're very much involved in research. We have over 826 active research protocols going on across the system. We today enjoy excellent financial strength. We're AA rated by Moody's and Standard & Poor's, which is very important because we do have tax-exempt bonds to help us continue to grow and meet the needs of the communities that we serve. And so it's very important that we maintain a very positive rating so that we can borrow the money at the lowest possible rate so that those dollars can go to take care of patients. Our asset base is $4.6 billion as of September of this past year, 2010. We will probably exceed $5 billion by the end of our fiscal year, which is June 30. We're in the fiscal year 2011. But we do provide $514 million of community benefit. That's charity care, free care that we give. It's the unreimbursed cost of what it costs us to deliver Medicaid and what the state pays us. They pay us 60 cents on the dollar, but it's our mission, our commitment to give back. Research, medical education, all part of the community benefit that we report every year to the state, which is required for us to maintain our tax-exempt status. Our capital budget this year is for $515 million. Part of that's replacement, new technology, new science, new buildings. We have a facility going up in McKinney, the new ones in the McKinney area. We have a new hospital, 100-bed hospital that will be opening in 2012. We're going to talk a little bit about our new cancer center on the Dallas campus, and we have expansions in Grapevine as well as Plano. We have several centers of excellence that we are noted for. Our neuroscience center, our new Charles A. Sammons Cancer Center. We've had a cancer center, Sammons Cancer Center, and we are now building a brand new 450,000 square foot outpatient cancer center, as you can see on the Dallas campus. That will be opening this month, and we want you to come visit and as a visitor and our open house. Our heart hospital on the Dallas campus, we have a regional transplant institute. We have one of the largest transplant programs in the country. Our liver transplant program is the 3rd largest in the United States, and we also do all other solid organs as well as bone marrow transplants. Our Diagnostic Center for Digestive Disease is known. Dr. Fortran has headed that up for many years, wrote the book on GI diseases. Our Collins Children's Hospital, George Truett Orthopedic Institute. We also operate a level 1 trauma center. It's the highest level of trauma services, and it's operated out of Baylor University Medical Center on our Dallas campus. There's 2 adult level 1 trauma centers in Dallas County. Parkland operates the other ones. Our board does it as a sense of mission so that we will have a stable network. We serve all of North Texas. We're Fort Worth, John Peter Smith has a level 1. After that, there's not another level 1 trauma center until you get to Austin, San Antonio. south. And east, there's not one going west. You have to go to Amarillo. We are very much involved in medical education. We're an academic teaching facility. We have 31 total medical education programs. We have residents and fellows on the Dallas campus, and we have 18 family medicine residents in Garland. It's very important that we continue to have, we do not have enough physicians in our country today to serve all the patients that are needed, and particularly in Texas, we need to continue to educate more physicians. I mentioned our research institute. We're on 3 campuses in Fort Worth, at Baylor All Saints, Plano, Baylor Regional Medical Center, Plano, and Dallas. And you can see where we're involved in some significant research that's going on. Diabetes is a big issue for meeting the needs of this community. We do a community needs assessment. Type 2 diabetes is huge in the state of Texas, but it's also one of the major medical needs in the Dallas area. Obviously, cardiac and cardiovascular, immunology. We do a lot of work around cancer, transplants, infectious disease, and creating vaccines. We talk more about personalized medicine into the future, and we have a major strategy into that area, and it comes back to the molecular and the genomic medicine. It has to do with the fact that you're going to be able to do your DNA sequencing fairly soon at a very low price. And once that's done, then you're going to have a significant amount of information about how you can be cared for and how you can make sure you're taking care of yourself as we go into this new era of healthcare and targeted therapies. And then clinical trials that we have. I mentioned our cancer center, $350 million that has been invested in our new cancer center. It's going to open to the public on March 26th, so I want to extend a personal invitation. March 26th, and you'll see more publicity, but we'd love to have you come and tour this facility. Then we're going back and taking Collins Hospital, which is where all of our good physicians that are moving into the new outpatient center have been housed on our Dallas campus. That was a mental hospital way back, and we turned it into physician office space. We're going to redo that, and that will become a centralized cancer hospital. And we will become a medical destination for cancer care in all of North Texas. Our physician group, Texas Oncology, sees more new cancer patients than any other group in the country. We're adding 200 new jobs. We are an economic indicator. I want to talk about servant leadership in a fast-changing world. That was kind of the topic that was given. I want to begin this with the video. My good friend Josh Garcia is here. I don't go anywhere without Josh if I got new technology. I am low tech. But I'd like for you to see this, and then we're going to talk more about servant leadership and what's going on in a very fast-paced world. Some of you may have seen this, but it's the latest version of the video, Did You Know? There may not be any sound with it, but it's okay. It's just music. Thank you, Josh. It's a little overwhelming. When I first saw this, it just becomes almost sobering to think about it. And what does that mean to leaders in this new time and age of what's happening and at warp speed? I saw the social network. My wife and I finally saw that, and it was a really amazing. I don't know about all the details, but all the facts, and there was a lot of discussion. But the concept and what really happened with that, and then what we see today, is phenomenal. You see what's going on in the Middle East today, what is spurring that on by one person with an internet capability. And how do we continue to stay up? I was talking to the governor, Michael, and first question he wanted to know, and I had one of the college presidents with me, and he said, when are we going to go to all technology in college? When are we going to do away with textbooks? When will we get rid of textbooks? When will we just go online instead and all the new technology? You see the number of jobs someone changes by the time they're 38. What does that mean for leaders? I mean, we're leading multiple generations. We've got you look at our organization, one of the things that we talk about in leadership, and we have what we call Leadership Development Institutes twice a year. We bring together 1,000 of our leaders from across the system for one day to talk about leadership. And one of the areas that we've concentrated on is this intergenerational issue. Because you can have in our organization 4 generations. You got us old baby boomers. You've got the Xers, the Yers, and the millennials. And they all come with a little bit of different, and I kind of see that in my own family. James mentioned that we have 2 boys. We also have a daughter. Our oldest son this Saturday will be 36. We went through that period where the phone always rang at the house, and we had to get a second line to where we don't even have a landline. I mean, it has all changed. You talk about how much has changed in knowledge. I remember when our second son was in college, he got not what I considered a great grade on history. We were talking about it. I said, hey, I get that grade. History, it's not that hard. Just study. You just got to study. You'll make a good grade. I said, Dad, you don't understand. I've had to study twice as much history as you did. But let's put it in the perspective of servant leadership. Because I truly believe as you look at what is happening and how fast this world is moving and how global we are, how connected we are, maybe over-connected, I still believe that the principles of servant leadership are what will continue to help guide this country and guide the leaders of this nation. Today, more than ever, we need leaders. You hear that talked about. We need leadership. We need leaders to come forward that will help continue to guide organizations, companies, cities, nations, school systems, this country, government, in the right direction. And I know you all are studying a lot around servant leadership. Robert Greenleaf was the one who coined the phrase servant leader back in 1970. There was a lot of controversy. What does that mean? Some negativity that came with it. And how did you overcome that? He wrote an essay entitled The Servant as Leader. He then went on to establish the Greenleaf Center in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I know you mentioned 2 great examples of servant leadership, actually referenced in some of the books I've read. Colleen Barrett, Southwest Airlines, Jack Lowe. He's been very much involved with servant leadership and the Greenleaf Center. Kent King, who's the author of The Case for Servant Leadership and is the current CEO of the Greenleaf Center, states that servant leadership, it's ethical, it's practical, and it's meaningful. Of course, I think, as you know, the basic assumption of servant leadership is that the leader has a responsibility for the followers. Leaders have a responsibility towards society, what we call corporate responsibility, helping those who are disadvantaged. Saw a perfect example of that with Bill's Club, of the different corporations that are involved in the community and fulfilling their corporate responsibility. And thirdly, people who want to help others best do this by leading them. The servant leader truly serves others. That's what it's about. It's a sense of service rather than others serving the leader. It's not about having others serve the leaders, it's serving them. And so what we do is we help others achieve, improve their lives. You know, and the interesting thing and what's most gratifying about servant leadership that has been time tested is the fact that it does affect the organization. And that's the most gratifying part, is when you see it displayed throughout your organization. Because what you're doing is you're giving the freedom to the employees to be what they can be. How do you manage? If you're a baby boomer with the mindset that I have of a baby boomer, and you're going to be in charge of developing and managing young aspiring leaders and their millennials who communicate in a totally different way, how are you going to relate? How will you help develop that leader along the lines of servant leadership? It's really a culture of collaboration and accountability, and then it fosters good ethics naturally. We've had a lot of discussion about ethics. We've seen organizations once great spiral downward because of unethical practices, doing the wrong thing. You know, servant leadership is about leading and doing things right. You know, management, really, managers do things right. Leaders do the right thing. There is a difference. Leaders do the right thing. And it's not always the most popular, but it will build intrinsic value in the company. No greater example than Southwest Airlines, which right here in our own community, that's a model of what that means. The principles are timeless. I truly believe it. That's why we go back to our founding statement, because that was about servant leadership. They're timeless. They're universal. And James mentioned that I shared with you balancing life in one of my talks of how important it is to balance life and how putting the priorities in place, and God first, family second, and then the job comes third. When I was in high school, and one of my great influencers, and I'm so thankful for, was my mother, great Christian believer who gave a lot of guidance and direction to a young kid that could have gone in a lot of different directions had it not been for her. But when I went off to college, she gave me a sign. She said, I want you to put this in your room, school, and I want you to look at it every day, and I want you to remind yourself of it. Very straightforward and very simple. And that sign is as relevant today as it was then. I still am reminded by my mother's admonition. And what it said, 3 simple statements. God first, others second, self last. That's servant leadership, and I didn't know it at the time. I hadn't heard the phrase. It hadn't been coined. I'm so old. That phrase hadn't even come in when I went off to college in 1966. But that wisdom is still important today, because a servant leader does put people first. If you're going to lead, you have to put your people first. Leaders that forget about that are the ones that think inwardly, and you can go back and look at companies that have gone down rather than up. You know, James Collins wrote the book Good to Great. Many of you probably read that. If you hadn't, it's a great book. It talks about how you take a good organization and make it great. He did some comparisons, if you'll recall, and how those that he considered being level 5 leaders, how well they did against the stock market versus those that were not, and how they went down. They went back and did another study through the Servant Leadership Institute, and they looked at those who they would classify as being led as servant leadership. They actually outperformed Collins's great organizations in the stock market. And I know that we've got a challenge when we're trying to serve as servant leaders in our fast-paced, internet-dominated, social media crazed, success-oriented, global economy world. I try to tell people it's still in this world today, in the businesses that we lead, it's about relationships. And I challenge our people every day, you cannot text your way to a relationship. There's no way you can do it. You cannot text yourself. Now, they say you can get married on the internet and doing all that. But a genuine human relationship is still sitting down and knowing and caring about the other person. It's a lot of that interaction that I fear we miss. I mean, I heard a speaker was talking, he said he had his bunch of kids in the back of the car. They have this Suburban and they're going down the highway on a trip. And he said, they're sitting there texting each other in the car. He said, I wanted to stop, scream. He said, quit texting and talk. Just talk. I mean, some of the greatest experiences we had with our younger boys was taking trips. And we talked. Then came the Walkman, and we lost that. Now every car's got the video. I mean, we're not talking. We're not talking. Some people say what we've missed in this society, most of all, was the front porch. And I know those of us that remember I grew up, moved off the farm, went into the city when I started high school. So my mom wanted me to go to better school. And we had a porch. We didn't have air conditioning, so in the hot summers, she would sit out on the porch. And people walk by and they'd talk, and they'd come up and sit on the porch and talk for 2 hours. And it was about relationships. Most houses, I'm not even sure, are built with porches today. But again, I guess I'm at that age now where I'm as my kids say, Dad, you're just old school. You're reminiscent. But there are some values, and that's why servant leadership is timeless. Let me talk a little bit about the 7 pillars of servant leadership. Has anybody read the book, The 7 Pillars of Servant Leadership by Sipes and Frick? We actually had, during time, we have a program at the hospital we call the Executive Development and Growth Experience, our EDGE program. We take our high potentials and send them through a year-long program in conjunction with SMU School of Business, Cox School of Business. We had him come in because we always have a module on servant leadership. And he was the author, and I had to spend some time with him. But I think these are the principles that will guide us into the future as we go through understanding how, in this fast-pacing world, how can we exhibit servant leadership and meet the needs of our companies, our organizations, our churches, our social organizations. And this, to me, are the characteristics that I think are timeless and ageless. So let me just go through those. You got the 7 pillars. The first one is a person of character. Now, with each of these 7, there's 3 indicators of what is required. And there'd be 21. Now, not everybody's going to have all 21, but when you get to a significant number, you really are moving into servant leadership. But a person of character makes insightful, ethical, and principle-centered decisions, maintains integrity, demonstrates humility, and serves a higher purpose. And one of the things is we talk about is a calling and a higher purpose. What is our higher purpose? We ask that question. What is it that we are passionate about? Bill George wrote the book Authentic Leadership. If you've read that, he talks about 3 ways you can look at your life's work. First way is you can look at it as a job. And we've all had jobs. Job's good. I had it. Go to work, 8 hours, get paid just to make some money to move on to the next job, perhaps. Or you can have a profession, like I said, and that's very worthy. This is the profession I want to pursue. This is what I want to do. He said the third way you can look at it, it's a calling. It's your passion. It's what you really care about. And I will be candid. I felt called into the ministry of healing. I felt called into that ministry in 1970 when I was a senior at Baylor. I felt called to come to Baylor. And I consider what I do as part of my calling and my passion, what I really care about. But that's looking at what is the higher purpose, how do you lead your organization, how do you lead with a higher purpose and a higher calling. And I'm blessed that I get to serve people at Baylor. So many men and women that come there as a sense of calling. They are there to serve, and they are truly committed to caring, and they say we have a program we call Sacred Vocation for a lot of our technical people. And it is such a meaningful experience for them to go through that because they said, this is my calling. We have people that come to Baylor after they've had an experience at Baylor as a patient, or they had a loved one. They said, I want to go serve too. Put people first, we talked about that, the servant's heart, mentor-minded. I'll touch on that a little bit because I think mentoring is so important and we're losing it. Skilled communicator. This is where I would really lock in. How are we communicating? So I talk about the different ways of communicating. The biggest part of servant leadership and communication is listening. And that means sitting down with the person and listening. You've got to hear from the person and understand. You demonstrate empathy. You give that feedback and you want feedback. And you must communicate persuasively. A compassionate collaborator. We have to have more collaboration. That's how I believe we will truly lead our companies or organizations. Co-opetition, they call it. It's collaboration. How do you work with other groups? And how can you bring them together and be compassionate about it as well? It's not just always win-lose, but it's, as Stephen Covey would say, it's win-win. How do we make sure And when we talk about it, we say we want a winning relationship. We want to win at Baylor. We want our team to win. We want most of all the patient to win, and beyond that, the community to win. It's all about collaborating and expressing appreciation, building teams and communities. It's all about community. I still believe that is the essence that we've got to come back to. And we do a lot of expressing appreciation. We have a lot of different recognition programs. We write notes. We write thank you letters to our people. We have our leaders that go around and round and say, what can I do for you today? We have huddle groups. A lot of ways in which you can thank people. We have formal recognition programs. You have to have foresight. You got to be visionary. Displays creativity. IBM just recently did a study of what are the leading traits for the leaders of this next decade. And it's always been, what's always been number one when you talk about the number one leadership trait for the past several years? It's integrity. Always comes out high. Integrity was up there, very, very close to number one. But you know what number one was in the IBM survey of over 2,000 leaders across every type of organization, public, private, creativity. And you saw that in the video. The mind of moving so fast, capturing that attention. You've got to be a systems thinker. Systems thinking is very, very important in this fast-paced world. And you've got to consider the greater good. And you've got to lead with moral authority. Worthy of respect, you've got to inspire the trust and confidence. One thing that people have to do is believe in what your vision is and what your mission is, and they believe you are truly serving them and that they can get excited. The thing that's scary in that was, how many jobs does someone change by the time they're 38? How do you keep and hold on to your good people that can continue to give your organization life? We're blessed we're 108 years old. It's because we've had people that have continued, the men and women that serve Baylor, committed to that vision and the mission and have been there. And I love going to our annual awards banquet when you're giving people 35 and 40-year pins. That's the core of your organization. And we have to have the ability to lead with moral authority and share power and control. Can we as leaders share that power and that control? Now, I want to shift gears here a little bit, and I want to talk about something that's a new concept that I think goes with servant leadership. Then I'm going to open up for questions. There's a new concept of leading like a shepherd. Anybody ever heard of that concept? It's relatively a new thought, but I think it ties back into servant leadership, and it's something that I've found very valuable. Because the shepherd stays behind the flock. Remember, the shepherd's leading the flock. The flock depends on the shepherd, but he's leading from behind. And he lets the most nimble go out ahead and be the leaders. And you have to identify who are your leaders. Can you share that and say, you go forward now and take that leadership turn? And you be willing to trust and say, I'm with you, I'm here. As I guess our young folks say today, I got your back. And lead. That image embodies the kind of leader that I think we need more of. Someone who understands how to create a culture in which other people are willing and able to lead. That's why we have our Leadership Development Institute. That's why we identify our high potentials and put them in our programs like the Executive Edge. We have nurses in a nursing leadership program. We have physicians that are in a physician leadership program. Part of servant leadership is continuing to train leaders, new leaders. And it's an acknowledgement that leadership is a collective activity. Different people at different times come forward. I'm blessed. I've got the greatest leadership team in the country. Every one of my team is a leader and can lead the organization, and I've got expertise. I'm a layperson. There's no way in the world I can manage and lead and direct physicians or nurses. They have much more knowledge and technical skills than I'll ever have. It's collegiality. And so I have a chief medical officer that does a great job, a chief nursing officer. You got the same thing, chief technology officer. Josh knows well, I could not lead technology. They bring me over there, I'm like, where am I? So let the leaders lead. And different people will come forward and they will make your organization even better. It's hard work. It requires judgment calls. You have to evaluate people. You got to decide who's in that group. James Collins said you got to get the right people on the bus, get the wrong people off the bus, and get the right people on the bus in the right seat. And that's part of this, is who is your leadership group. Articulate values that inform the group, develop their talents. You set some boundaries, hold them accountable, and then there's going to be tensions. If you got high-performing people, you're going to have some tensions. But it's the way in which you go about letting them lead and work with you. So, if you look at your leadership traits, those are the ones that I think are still key to a leader and a servant leader. You got to have humor. Boy, in this world, humor gets you a long ways as a leader. It's one of the things I always admired about President Reagan. President Reagan was a great humorist. Notice that when he would speak, and every time he was talking, he just had that. He could break the tenseness. I never will forget one of the greatest lines, and you probably read about in the paper, that he was speaking to a group of women. And they weren't the most, they were a little bit hostile to some of his policies. And the women came in the room, and he was talking to me, and he said, I'll tell you a story. He said, I was going down the street, and a patient, individual man fell over, went into respiratory arrest. There was a lady that came up and was kneeling down beside him, and this guy came running up, and this man pushed her aside and said, here, I know CPR, let me go to work on this. And he was going through the steps, CPR, and this lady that he pushed aside, and she looked at him and she said, well, when you get to the point where it says, call a doctor, I'm right here. So, he was a master. We talk about principle-centered leadership. And again, be continually learning. That's something we continue to instill in our people. And I won't go into all. Exercise for self-renewal. Spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional. Keep that balance in mind. Balance, the emotional, the spiritual, and the physical. I mentioned mentors. Very important to have mentors. I had mentors today. And I never will forget what the advice that I was given by Dr. Cotter, John Cotter. Some of you read his books at Harvard. He said, have advisors, have mentors, but remember, the type of advice you will get is based on who you choose to be your advisor. So choose well. And I never have forgotten that. Very important. And you want close, trusted advisors that can help you continue to grow and be a leader. Colin Powell says, leadership is all about people. It's not about organizations. It's not about plans. It is all about people. Motivating people to get the job done, you have to be people-centered. And that, to me, is the core of servant leadership. You care about others. You serve others. I always pray that, Lord, help me to be a servant leader and help me to serve others, because I will only be successful, the organization will only be successful through the work and the efforts of the individual whom I have the pleasure of serving. And it's really rewarding, and I'm blessed that I get to serve some of the finest men and women I'd ever hope to know. And it's a real pleasure, and I appreciate the time you allowed me this morning. It's wonderful to be with such a great organization that is focusing on servant leadership. I admire what you're doing, and I hope that you will continue on that path, because we can change the world. It's happening today. One person changed the world. One person changed Tunisia. You know what started Tunisia? It was a guy that set himself on fire because he didn't agree with the country. One man set himself on fire. It caused all that started. It was one guy going on the internet in Egypt. We can make a difference. One person can have an impact. You can have that impact. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I'll open it up for questions.
Any questions for Joel?
Yes, sir.
Joel, since you deal with all of the generations, what is the most complicated issue that you're trying to resolve with regard to communication between the millennials, the Xers, the Yers, and us guys?
The biggest challenge we have right now, and I don't know that we're unique, is the social media. We're really working on how do we use the social media, because for a variety of reasons. One, that's how people want to communicate, and it's happening. You can't stop it. Yet at the same time, in our organization, there's how do you set those principles? How are people using it? You're going to have your people going online for 2 hours a day. What does it do to productivity? What are they sharing? We have HIPAA, which is the Patient Protection Privacy Act, and so there's information that can't get out. So how do we set those standards? But at the same time, we know that that's how we need to communicate with the community. I mean, people, for our example, are getting health care by going online. our doctors are having patients come in with this reams of paper and said, I took this off the internet and I understand I've got this particular disease or this particular illness, and here's what they're saying. What do you say about it? That's how they want to communicate, and that's how they want to be educated. That's how they want to have dialogue. So how we use technology today, I think, is a huge and important challenge. And so that's what we're really, so we're implementing the electronic health record. We're implementing computerized physician order entry. All that is changing, and us baby boomers getting used to doing all that is a challenge. But that's where it is, and using it appropriately. So, yes, sir.
As a fellow baby boomer, I remember the days when doctors actually made visits to the house.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about patient-doctor relationships and what you see that could possibly positively change that, given some of the dynamics what we see today.
Great question, because I believe there's really one of the most sacred relationships in healthcare is the patient-physician relationship. Anything that comes and wedges between the patient-physician is never going to allow us to take healthcare where it needs to be. And what we're seeing is the challenge for physicians in their offices to see more patients, how they want to relate, and tie that to how we're reimbursed for that. So there's a couple of things that are going on to address your point. One is we are having more hospitalists. There are more physicians that spend all their time in the hospital. So if a doctor puts his or her patient in the hospital, he hands or she hands off that patient to a hospitalist. We have hospitalists. We got intensivists that are in the intensive care units overseeing that patient. We got nocturnalists, which are in there all night. There's all types of strategies now about the doctor being able to stay in the office. So we have a lot of physicians that are, quote, on our medical staff that may never come into the hospital because they use the hospitalists and the intensivists to see and manage a patient until they're discharged. The other thing that we're going to have to do is there needs to be, and this is part of changing the whole dynamic of healthcare, and it's a big piece of the healthcare reform technology, is are we going to pay for email care? A lot of people want to email the physician, and our physicians do emails now. E-prescribing, get your prescription all over the internet. You've got to be able to recognize that and get paid for it. We have now evolving, and it's a niche. I don't know how big it'll get, but what we call concierge medicine. You familiar with concierge medicine, where a physician will tell his patient, okay, you pay me X amount of dollars for the year. I'm your personal physician. I will email you. You can call me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I will actually come to your house. We may be going back to a more simple way, but that's for a very narrow, and you've got to have the capacity to pay for that physician. But there is concierge medicine going on today. So again, you're seeing medicine delivered through the internet by coaches and managers. And if you're in a health plan today, sometimes you're told to go to a nurse that's on the phone or on the internet to say, I've got this particular thing, what should I do? And they begin to manage your illness. We're going to see that as we have more chronic care. You got to understand, 5% of the population today consumes 50 to 60% of the healthcare costs. And it's really around chronic disease, heart failure, asthma, diabetes. And so what we got to do is, how do you manage those? And we all are living longer. And my physician friend told me, Joe, you're going to live long enough, you're going to get something. Just part of the aging process. And so how do we manage that? And what are we going to leverage as far as technology? We have that. You're going to see the day, and I saw this presented at a technology conference. It was amazing. Patient was at home. One of my age folks, us elderly, more matures. I tell my kids. Gets up, voice comes on, says, good morning, Mr. Allison. How are you doing today? Please sit on the scales. You weigh, goes directly to them, takes your blood test, checks your sugar level, says, hey, you know, it's a little high, I want you to go do this. And it's all being communicated, and they're having a conversation. And it's all done at home. You will also have the device that will tell you when you need to take your medication. You'll have alerts. If you're on a specific medication where you need to take it every so many hours, you'll be alerted to it. So we're going to leverage technology that will put more interaction, but I think we're going to need more mid-levels. We don't have enough physicians. I think, and I know my wife, when our kids were growing up, she never really talked to the pediatrician. She'd always just talk to the nurse and the nurse practitioner. And that's what's going to have to happen for the physician to have enough time to stay with the very critically ill, seriously ill.
We have time for one more. I think you're okay.
I was just wondering if due to all the healthcare questions in the future and everything, if the enrollment of medical students is increasing or decreasing?
So that is a great question, because we do need more students, and the schools are trying to get the slots increased. You'll go to the legislature, as we've been down there, all of your medical schools are trying to get increased enrollment, and they want more. We're going to have more medical students on our campus, quite frankly, because one of the schools of medicine wants to increase their enrollment. So they are trying to increase it. They capped it at one point when they thought we're going to have too many way back. Well, it's a long lead time to get it back into the pipeline and get the funding for it. So that's one of the issues that's going on today. I've got colleagues that are actually starting their own medical school in their systems because they need more doctors. So yes, and we're seeing more foreign trained. The other thing that's happening that's impacting and it's good in one respect, but there's also challenges. We have more women. 50% of the residents today are female. And when they come to work, that's fine, but there's times when, they've got families and they want to have families, so you got to balance it. So you need more physicians. It's great that we have so many, but then that may be a short-lived time, or you have to have two working part-time together, which we do. We have all kinds of models. It's the other thing you got to do with this workforce today. You got to be pretty flexible. We actually set up on the internet a way to go online, and you can choose when you want to work. You say, okay, I got 4 hours today. I'm an RN, and I can work here 4 hours, and we can, that's the new world, because that's what these millennials and Xers and Yers, that's what they want. They want flexibility. They want quality time. They want time with family. We have to adjust it. It's part of where we're headed. Short answer, yes, we need more positions. So I think our time's up. Thanks, y'all.
You just got to participate. You got to show up. As technology continues to just drive forward 100 miles an hour, leadership will not change. It can only improve. So as executives, I would encourage you to continue to participate, continue to educate yourselves. Ask yourself every day, what did you do for someone else? How did you help them before you help yourself? There are some great things coming for this organization. I can commit to you right now. We are going to be on a relentless pursuit of changing the way that executives interact, the way they communicate, the way they respond. Dallas will be the next Tunisia. We're going to create it here, and we're going to take it everywhere. We will change the way the business is done. We've got great advisors. I'm going to have a one-off conversation with Joel. Let's see if we can figure out some time. And I can tell you right now, Joel, we have your back. I would like to thank everybody for showing up. One key piece of this organization moving forward will be participation. We will make a difference, I can guarantee you.